Are you looking for a versatile sling bag with a sleek design? Hi sewing friends, I'm Stephanie and this is Ashtown Creations. I'm so excited about today's project because we are sewing the Piero Sling pack, which is the September 2025 Bag of the Month Club pattern by Creations. This bag is such a fun and functional make. On the outside of the bag, we have a slip pocket with a flap. We have the strap, an adjustable strap. I have quilted the back of the bag. The bag opens with a dual zipper to allow for easy access no matter which side you carry it on. The padded adjustable sling strap can be attached to either side with D-ring anchors, making it super comfortable and versatile. Inside, you have the option of adding a slip pocket, and the bag is finished inside with binding for a professional look. I will be walking you through the process step by step, but before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button. Share this with your sewing friends. Leave me a comment in the comment section below, letting me know what fabrics you'd use for your Piero Sling pack. And of course, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future tutorials and sewing fun. In the description box, I will link the pattern, any materials that I have used and that I can find, and timestamps so you can jump to whatever section you would like. I want to say thank you to Tara from Creations for allowing me to record this tutorial for you. So grab your fabric and your hardware and let's make this stylish and practical sling pack together. Let's go through the pieces for the Piero Sling pack. These are all the pieces for the exterior of the bag. So up here I have my pocket lining. I have done it out of a cotton canvas I got from my fabric dresser, and I have interfaced it with a woven interfacing. Now my woven interfacing shrinks, and I know if I spritz it with water it will shrink down, and then I fuse it on so that I'm not making my actual pattern piece smaller. So I actually did cut out the woven interfacing the same size, but after spritzing it, it actually took it down a little more than 1/8 of an inch, almost 1/4 of an inch all the way around. So all of my cotton pieces, my cotton canvas pieces, have been interfaced with a woven interfacing. So that is my pocket lining. Here I've got my pocket flap. I have done more faux leather and the cotton canvas as well. I also did put some woven interfacing on the Mora. I was going to do the whole bag, all of the Mora pieces, because it does tend to stretch, but I think I haven't done it before. I haven't interfaced it before, so I think I'm just going to leave this one interfaced and then the rest of the pieces should be fine. Over here I have my slip pocket. I have, again, out of the cotton canvas, I have 2 pieces and I have interfaced both pieces. Over here I have my back zip gusset pieces. I have one cut out of my Mora faux leather and one out of an Tex waterproof canvas. For the front zip gusset, I have also got one piece of Mora faux leather and one Tex waterproof canvas. And for both of the gusset pieces, it tells you on the pattern piece which side the zipper goes on. So I have just marked mine. I just put zip in heat erasing ink. I just marked which side the zipper actually goes on for those 2 pieces. Here I have my gusset ends. So I've cut 2 pieces in facing one direction, one out of Mora faux leather, one out of waterproof canvas. And then you have to make sure you've got mirrored pieces. So I've got another set of gusset ends out of Mora faux leather and the waterproof canvas. Here I have my flap tab. I decided I was going to do it out of my waterproof canvas. Here is my back body. I have, as you can see, I have quilted on the foam in this case, and I just decided to do this diamond, the elongated diamond pattern on this. I'm not going to be going through how to quilt this in this tutorial. There are other videos that I have done just the regular diamond. This one I decided to do a double stitch. So I marked my line and then I stitched 1/8 of an inch on either side of it. I just decided I wanted the foam stitched on. There is another piece for foam, and it's a stabilizer piece for foam, and it looks like it goes the whole way around the bag. I didn't want foam in the front of my bag. I just wanted it for the back, and I will be putting it in the straps. I'm not putting it in the gusset. I don't believe it calls for it in the gusset, but sometimes there's foam in the gusset. I'm not putting it in. I need to still cut my foam for, this is the strap. I've decided to do the strap out of waterproof canvas, and I need to cut the foam piece for that. Over here, I've got my strap anchors, and I've cut them out of Mora faux leather. For the lining of the bag, there is a main lining piece if you decide you don't want to put a slip pocket inside the bag. There is one main lining piece that will cover the whole inside of the bag, but I've decided that I want to do a slip pocket that's made up just like the exterior pocket. So on page 3, just after the cutting chart, there are 2 green boxes that are tips and tricks. The second box says if you want to add a slip pocket to the interior, you need to do it just like the front exterior pocket, but you do it without the flap. You don't cut the full body lining piece then. You need to cut one pocket lining. So I've done my pocket lining out of the waterproof canvas. You need 2 front pockets. In my case, I've got one piece of the cotton canvas, and I've interfaced it with a woven interfacing, and I have one piece of waterproof canvas. The other piece you need is back body. So I decided for the interior to do mine again in waterproof canvas. So when it comes to this step, we will be constructing this piece the same as we would it will end up being the same as if we had just cut the full body lining piece. Over here I have my zipper. It's a number 5 zipper. I've decided to go with like a royal blue and a gold color. I have my webbing for the strap. I have a 1-inch swivel hook, 2 3/4 inch D-rings, a 1-inch slider. For my zipper, the pattern suggests using 2 sliders that meet in the middle. And the other thing I have here is my Ashtown Creations cork label. So other than the foam that I know I still need to cut, I believe that is everything. So let's get sewing this bag. So in this step, we are going to be constructing our strap anchor. So I've got my 2 strap anchor pieces here. I have already marked them down the center, and I have put some double-sided tape, just 1/4 inch double-sided tape down the center. If you're using fabric, you can fold it in half, making it 3/4 of an inch, and then open it up and fold your raw ends in. But since I'm using more faux leather, I've just drawn the line. So I'm going to take the paper backing off of the tape, and I'm going to fold. I'm starting in the center, and I'm folding the raw edge to that center line. Flip it around, and then I'm folding it the other direction. So both raw ends meet in the center. I don't know if you can see that. So I'm going to do the same for the other piece, and then we will turn around and we are going to top stitch some at the machine. As I said, we are going to be top stitching these. Now I'm going to be top stitching approximately 1/8 of an inch from either side, and I'm putting it on a 5 stitch length. I will chain stitch these, so I'll do both of them and then we'll add the D-rings. Okay, got all trimmed up. Now I've got my 2 D-rings. I'm going to take one of my strap anchors. I've got the opening, so the wrong side of the strap anchors to the back. I'm going to take my D-ring and I'm going to put the flat side of the D-ring along the wrong side of the anchor. Fold it over, and I'm right now just going to put a clip in it. Do the same for the other, and then I'm going to just baste the raw ends together. So I'm still on my 5 stitch length. I'm just going to run stitches across the ends of both of these, then we can move on. Moving on to the strap, I cut out my foam. I think I got it a little twisted. I cut out my foam and cut it down as per the instructions, and I've basted it onto one of my 2 strap pieces. So we're going to need our strap pieces and our webbing for this. So just going to set one of these aside. So on my webbing, I have marked a line because we need to have it, the webbing extending past the end of the strap by that much. I'm not giving it out because you need the pattern. So I've marked mine, and now I'm going to try and center, matching up the line on the bottom and along the center of the strap piece. So I'm just going to put a couple clips in it. I'm just going to quickly go off camera and I'm going to baste this into place. You don't need to see me do that. All right, there we go. I've basted this in place. So now I'm going to take the second piece for the strap and I'm going to place them right sides together with the strap sandwiched, or the webbing sandwiched in between. I'm going to grab some clips and I'm going to clip it at the bottom and up the 2 sides. There we go. Now I'm going to take it to the machine and I am going to stitch down the 2 long sides across the bottom over the webbing, reinforcing that, and then back up the other side. I am going to put it with the piece that I just added on my feed dogs. Because the foam is puffing it up, it will end up skewing things if I have it the other way around. So I'm just going to turn around to the machine and we'll get this stitched on. All right, as I mentioned, we're going to stitch down the 2 long sides and across the bottom. And I'm going to sew even the part that doesn't have foam in it. So I'm going to start from the very top, and I'm going to do it the full seam allowance given in the pattern because there isn't a specific seam allowance for this step. And I'm back stitching at the beginning and the end of the seam. And we want to make sure that our webbing doesn't sneak over to one side or the other because we don't want to stitch it in. So make sure it's straight up the center. Right, I'm going to grab my scissors and I'm going to just trim off some at the corners here. And I'm going to try and remove some of the foam from the seam allowance. Now, I think it'll be easier if I just trim down the part that I've actually sewn. I'm just going to trim both the lining piece or the strap piece and the foam because I've basted it on. So I'm just pushing it out of the way while I cut along this edge. All right, now I'm going to turn this piece right side out from the top here. I'm going to try and just pull on the webbing and see if that works. I might have to heat up my waterproof canvas to make it more pliable so I can turn it right side out. I'm going to keep working at it, and if I need to, I'll go off camera and try and heat this up so it actually will turn properly. Okay, I finally got it. What ended up working was when I started turning from this part, working my way down, and then taking it to my iron and steaming it. So I believe with waterproof canvas, you can use a hair dryer on it. Be careful about your heat setting because you don't want to melt your waterproof canvas if you're using waterproof canvas. If you have arthritis, maybe a good idea to stick with quilting cotton or cotton canvas. The waterproof canvas took quite a bit to get it. I think a faux leather would probably be just as difficult. I've got it. It was a little hard on my hands, but now I get to move on to the stitching part. So I'm going to move us around and we will stitch this up. All right, I've got my strap here. I'm going to top stitch it. So I have flattened it out. When I was turning it, I took the iron to it and flattened it out. Now along the edges, we are going to top stitch all the way around and close the the top. So I've got mine on a 5 stitch length, and I'm just top stitching right now at 1/8 of an inch. You can add a couple lines of top stitching, you add one down the center if you want. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. I'm probably going to just decide on the fly. So anyways, back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam, and then let's go. I think I'm just going to leave it with the 2 lines of stitching, or 2 rows of stitching. I think that looks good. So I'm going to set this aside for now, and we can move on to the next step. Now we're moving on to the slip pocket. So I've got my 2 slip pocket pieces here, and I am going to put them right sides together, and I'm going to match up along the top and put some clips in it. I'm going to set my machine on a 3.5 stitch length because we're joining, and I'm going to actually just put a couple more in because I want to make sure that it stays centered. And we are going to sew across this top edge with the full seam allowance given in the pattern. And I will backstitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. I'm going to take it to the iron. I'm going to turn it right side out, so I have a nice edge across the top. And when I come back, we will baste this together. Right back from the iron, and I have ironed it so that it's nice. I'm just going to put a couple clips in it again to hold it. And we are going to top stitch. So get my threads. I'm going to set it on a 5 stitch length. I'm going to top stitch across the top and then baste around the other raw edges. All right, there we go. That's the slip pocket. We can set this aside and move on to the next step. All right, we're moving on to the flap tab. So I have my little flap tab piece here. It's just a piece of waterproof canvas. I marked a line down the center, and I put a little bit of 1/8 inch tape on. I'm going to fold the long raw edges, side edges, to the center, right to that center line on both sides. And I'm going to meet them up in the center. So I'm not leaving any, we're not folding it again, so I'm not leaving any space in by the line. So there we go. And now we're going to top stitch along both of the long edges. So I'm just going to move it back to a 4 stitch length because I think 5 might be a little large for this piece. So I'm just going to top stitch at the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And there we go. I'm going to now fold it in half, bringing the 2 short ends together. I'm going to just put a clip in it. Now we need the flap pieces. I've got my 2 flap pieces here. This is my exterior. I've already added my Ashtown Creations label, so if you want it added to the flap, then you need to add it before we do this, the next few steps. So I've got it right side up. I'm going to take my little tab and I'm going to line it up centered with my, I have a notch already in the bottom, and I'm going to line it up. I'm just going to put a little clip in it, and we are going to baste it in place. So I'm putting it back on a 5 stitch length and just basting across the bottom. There we go. So now I'm going to take the lining, flap lining piece, and I'm going to place it right sides together, matching up this bottom edge. And I'm going to put a couple clips in it. Now I'm going to sew across. So I've got putting it on a 3.5 stitch length, and I'm going to sew from one side all the way around the bottom to the other side. And I may reinforce this point when I get there. And we are doing this with the full seam allowance. Grabbing my scissors, and now we're supposed to trim along the corner seam allowances. So I'm going to at least do these ones. I'm not trimming my tab. And I'm for now going to leave this because I'm not sure we should be cutting this down. So we're supposed to turn it right side out. So I'm going to turn it right side out. And for now I'm just going to put a couple clips in it. I'm probably going to the machine or to the iron to iron this a little more flat. I think it's probably good enough. The trimming. If I need to, I may trim it back a little bit, but I'm going to go to the iron now and I'm going to iron this, and then we will come back and top stitch. All right, I gave it a little press and poked out some of the corners. So now I'm going to switch to a 5 stitch length, and we are going to top stitch along the sewn edge and then baste around the others. So I'm just doing this with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And I will back stitch at the beginning and the end. Moving on, we are now going to take our pocket lining piece, our slip pocket, and our flap. We're going to place our pocket lining piece right side up. Make sure that you can see your marks, top and bottom. Anyways, we're going to take the slip pocket and we are going to match it up with the center mark along the bottom. I'm going to grab a clip and clip it, and then clip it along the sides. Now we're going to take our flap piece and I'm going to center it here with the center mark at the top of my lining panel piece, and I'm going to put a clip in it. And we want to make sure that it is centered, it's evenly spaced. And the other thing we want to make sure is that these ends right here, so right here, the flap should not overlap the slip pocket. It should butt up against the slip pocket. So I'm just going to grab a couple heavier duty clips and clip right at that spot. So I'm going to make sure that it's butting up against it. And then the same on the other side, make sure it butts up against it. Now we are going to take it over to the machine and we are going to baste this in place. All right, basting this in place, I'll do it at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 5 stitch lengths. So basically I'll be running stitches over the basting seams or the basting lines we have already got. I'm going to start just up from this join and then continue around. And I will back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. We can set this aside for now. All right, this piece is now considered our front panel. So now we're going to take our front panel and our body back piece, and I'm going to put them right sides together, match at the bottom, matching the notches. Well, the notch. And I'm going to clip. I'm going to get the heavy duty clips out because we're going to need this. I'm also going to grab my scissors because I need to go around and notch this panel. Let's see if my better scissors will work. And I'm going to notch this panel with 1/4 inch notches all the way along. This will allow us to bend it around to match the front panel. So now I'm going to bend this back panel piece around to match the curve of the front panel, and I'm going to clip. Use as many clips as you need. If you need to put more snips in, put more snips, just to remember what our seam allowance is, the full seam allowance, so that you don't snip beyond that. I have a bad feeling I did one beyond that. Same for the other side. Now we're going to go over to the machine and we are going to stitch along this edge with the full seam allowance given in the pattern. All right, so I'm setting it on a 3.5 stitch length, and as I said, the full seam allowance given in the pattern. I'm going to do it from with the back side up so that I can control the curve of the back piece. Back stitching at the beginning and the end of the seam. Right, it's all on. We are going to press the seam down towards the body back. So we want our seam allowance going down. We're not going to top stitch this right now. We're just pressing it away from the front piece. If you are using foam for the entire bag, this is where you would apply the second piece, the stabilizer. So my body back has one. There is another foam piece that was one solid piece that you can apply now if you want. So by either basting spray, glue, double-sided tape. And then we're going to turn it over, and since I'm not applying it, I am going to top stitch this curve. So pulling my threads to the back and 5 stitch length, just going to pause and double check my bobbin. I think we're okay just for this one, but I'm going to switch it after. So 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, 5 stitch length, and top stitching just along this curve. And there we go. We can set this body, this is now the body panel, we can set the body panel aside for now. All right, we're moving on to the gusset, the zipper gusset, and we've got our back and front gusset pieces and our zipper. I have gone and marked the centers. I marked this one with a silver marking pen. I don't like snipping into my zippers. And I've also found the centers for the side that was identified, side of the pattern piece that was identified as where the zipper goes. So I found the centers for all 4 of these pieces, the 2 back and the 2 fronts. I'm just going to set the fronts to the side. I'm grabbing my exterior back, right side up. So this is my more faux leather. This is the exterior, right side up, and I'm going to place the zipper right sides together with this piece, lining up my center marks. Gonna just grab some clips and clip it in place and work my way around to each side. Right, now we're going to take this to the machine and we are going to baste this in place. So basting the zipper in place with I'm using a 5 stitch length and right along the edge. Now I'm going to use up what's left of my bobbin. I may have to switch my bobbin out after this. There we go. Now I'm going to take the lining back zipper gusset piece and I'm going to put it right sides together with the piece we just stitched. I'm going to clip, make sure I've lined it up along the edge and along, like make sure this is all lined up too, because the pieces should be the same size, so it should all match. And I'm just going to clip. I'm actually going to stitch it from the other side, so I'm going to flip my clips. We are not going to be stitching these 3 sides. We're only going to be stitching along the zipper here, but I like to try and keep everything even. All right, since the pattern pieces are a very, very specific shape, I've decided I swapped out to my zipper foot, because if they were just rectangles, it'd be easier to trim off some, but they're not. They are a very, very distinct shape. So I'm going to try and get as close to the full seam allowance as possible. And I've got it on a 3.5 stitch length, and I will back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. All right, now we're supposed to pull the fabric away from the teeth, and we're supposed to be top stitching. I'm just going to clip this stuff back out of the way so I can add the other side while I still have my zipper foot on, and then I will top stitch after. All right, now we're going to do the same thing with the other panels. So the front zip gusset panel. So again, it said which side the zipper is supposed to be on. So I've marked my center on there, and I'm going to flip this around. I'm going to match up the centers and put a clip in it, and do exactly the same thing for the zipper on this side as I did the other side. So I'm going to clip this into place. Now I'm going to try and baste it with the zipper foot that I have. 5 stitch length, and I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. Alright, it started to slide right about here, so I'm just going to go back and take out some of these threads and try that section again. And just like the other side, I'm going to grab the lining piece. I'm going to put it basically right sides together with the exterior piece, matching up the notches and this long edge. I'm putting clips in it. I'm going to go ahead and do this off camera. It's no different than the other one. And then I will do the top stitching when I come back. Okay, got this second side stitched on, and I have switched back to my regular foot. Now I'm going to do the same and pull these sides away from the zipper and clip all the way along. All right, and now I'm going to top stitch along this edge closest to the zipper, and I'm going to be pulling the panels away from the zipper all the way along as I stitch, and then I will come down and I will baste all of the raw edges together. So starting, I've got it on a 5 stitch length, and I'm going to start with the top stitching, and it's all about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, before we move on, I want to make sure that I have my zipper sliders on. So I'm just going to go over how I add a zipper slider. So there we go. These are nylon coil zippers. This is a number 5 nylon coil zipper. And nylon coils have basically the teeth alternating. So, you know, left, right, left, right, left, right, all the way down. And if I cut it so that it's fairly straight. Right now it's puckering, but it's going to go around a curve, so it should be fine. So if I want the zipper in exactly the same spot, because we have lined these up with the middle. So I have to make sure that I get the coils back just like it is. So left and then right, left, right, left, right. So to put on the slider, I first break the coils. I'm going to put the slider on the side that I want at the top. I'm going to put the other side in, and then I'm going to push down with my index finger on the butt end of the zipper slider, and I'm going to move it forward. I'm going to have a look to make sure that I've got the teeth up here lined up like I had it before. I also will take a look to see that the nose part of the zipper slider with this piece here is pointing directly down the zipper. And then I'm also going to have a look at the bulges on either side to make sure that there isn't one side that is bigger than the other. So I've got it in the right way this time. So I'm just going to slide this to the center. I'll flip over to the other side, and in this case we have the right starting. So the other one had the left first, this has the right first. So I'm going to separate the zipper. Like I said, I put it on here, and then I'm going to slip the other side in, and I'm actually going to not line it up. So I'm going to push on the end when I got it anyways. try and make it wrong so we can show you what it looks like. So there we go. So this is wrong. So I've got 2 on the right, then 1 on the left. I only want 1 on the right, 1 on the left, back and forth. Looking at the nose of the zipper slider, it's pointing this way. It's not pointing straight down. And then I also have a bulge more on one side than the other. So I'm going to back the zipper off a bit. Try not to take it right off. And then I'm going to pull down on one side. Try and even it up. So I'm pushing up with my fingers, even. Have a look, it looks pretty good. I'm going to just push down on the butt end and check, and there I got it. So it's pointing, the nose is pointing right down the center of the teeth and of the coils, and there's not a bulge on one side more than the other. So I'm going to move this one again around the center of the panel. So there we go. I've added those on. I'm just going to run a basting stitch over the end so that I don't by accident zip them off. So I've got it still on a 5-stitch length. So I'm just going to go back and forth over the teeth a bit so that it can't come off. I'll do the same for the other side. And now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to trim off this extra here. I'm going to grab my lighter and I'm going to melt the ends of the zipper so that it doesn't fray. And there we go. This is the zipper gusset panel. Now we're going to add the gusset ends to the gusset panel. So the way they work, so these are the right sides of both of these pieces. They need to go like this. When they're right sides together, they need to work like that. And the second thing, so this is the back of the gusset, this is the front, so this will be, the front of the bag will be here and the back of the bag will be here. We need to place these so that the long edge is along the back. So they will sit funny, like they'll sit out like that, but you want to make sure that the long part is along the back. So my panel, my zipper panel is a tiny bit bigger. So what I'm going to do is make sure that the front matches up, because then I can just take extra off of the back. So these two go together and those two go together. So I'm going to, since I've got this side down, I'm going to work with this one first. So I've got this one and I've got it right side up. I'm going to place the zipper gusset with the lining side. So I've got the lining piece, one of the lining pieces right side up, and I'm going to place the gusset, zipper gusset panel. So basically linings right side together, matching up this angle here and this long edge here. I'm going to grab some clips and I'm going to clip. I'm going to clip it in a couple places. Doing the same for the other. So I'm grabbing the other lining piece, gusset end piece, and I'm making sure that the long side is to the back. It should be because you've already picked one, but just double check. And then I'm going to place it down on top of the panel just like that, and I'm going to clip it into place. All right, the instructions have us placing our exterior pieces on now. I'm just going to quickly go and baste these ones into place and then we'll put these on. So I'm just pausing and then I will baste it on with a 5-stitch length, about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then I'll be back. All right, I'm back and I'm going to take the other panel and I'm going to place it right sides together with the package we already have. So I'm sandwiching it right side, so exterior to exterior, we've already got the lining to the lining. And I'm going to line it up so that this point matches, and I'm going to actually put a couple clips around the edge just to make sure that this panel stays even. And then I'm going to clip along this edge here. And the instructions do say if you have a little wider, it could be because you have a little more seam allowance or your zipper tape was a little wider than thought. Like when Tara created this pattern, she has a certain measurement for her zipper tape. Maybe yours is a little bit wider, or you took a slightly larger seam allowance or smaller seam allowance. So I'm going to take this other piece and I'm going to put it together as well. And now we're going to take this whole package over and we are going to stitch along either side with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Okay, I'm on a 3.5 stitch length and I'm going to sew across these two short ends with the full seam allowance given in the pattern. Back stitching at the beginning and the end of the seam. Do the same for the other side. All right, now I'm going to switch to a 5 stitch length. I'm going to press my gusset ends away from the zipper panel and pull them straight down. I'm going to put some clips in them to try and keep them lined up. It should end up creating a, they should come straight down from the panel. I'm probably going to take this to my iron to try and give it a decent press. See if I can press. Well, the waterproof canvas should press before I top stitch along this edge. So I'll just go off and do that and then I'll be back. All right, back from the iron and I have pressed them down. So now I'm just going to top stitch along this seam and then baste around the rest of it. So I'm on a 5 stitch length and I'll back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. Now we're going to attach our strap anchors. So there's instructions in the pattern how far up, because we're going to have an overhang. So I've marked a line that distance up from the edge, and I'm going to line that up with the edge of the piece here. This is the bottom gusset, and there is also a notch or a mark on the pattern piece where we want to start that D-ring strap anchor. So we want to place it along at that mark. So I'm just placing it right at that mark and I'm lining up this line with the edge of my panel. So now I'm just going to stitch it on, baste it on. I've got it on a 5 stitch length and I'm going to baste it on about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And I will be back stitching a couple times because I want to reinforce it. I've already added my other one, so go ahead and add your second D-ring. I've got both of mine on. Depending on how things end up, I might put a rivet in here. We'll see. All right, we're moving on now to the final construction. So for your lining, if you have chosen not to do the slip pocket, then you will just have one long piece like this. If you have chosen to do the slip pocket, then you will do exactly the same steps minus the flap. So these are exactly the same steps as the exterior, only there's no flap on the inside. So there's going to be timestamps in this video, so you can go back to the construction. There should be a section for the construction of the exterior panel. Just go back and re-watch it minus the flap. So you should have your exteriors all ready, and then we have our lining panel. I'm just moving that. We have our lining panel as well. We also have our gusset and we have our strap. So those are the last few pieces. The first thing we need to do is put our exterior face down and our lining face or wrong side. So basically we're putting them wrong sides together. And I have decided that I want my slip pocket inside at the back. So this is what it's going to look like on the outside. When you open it up, the slip pocket is going to be on the back. So this is how I am going to put mine together. Now if you need to go back and remark some of your markings from your pattern pieces, go ahead and do that. I'm going to start clipping around. So I'm going to actually want to make sure I've got everything lined up, because we are going to baste these pieces together. So I'm going to go around and clip, and then we'll take it over and I will baste these two together. All right, going to take this around to the machine and we're going to baste it on with a 5-stitch length. As I mentioned, we're going to baste this on with a 5-stitch length. And I'm going to just start somewhere in a flat area and backstitch at the beginning and the end and go all around the whole package. I'm trying my best to keep the edges aligned. So the front and the back panels, I'm trying hard to keep them aligned. Now that we have the exterior and lining stitched together, we need to add our strap. So I have marked the center of my strap, and I have the center marked on my exterior of my main panel. So this is the back of the main panel, and we want to put our strap, we want to put it right side up, and we're going to match the centers. I'm going to grab a couple clips and clip this into place. There we go. I'm just going to quickly go over to the machine and I'm going to baste this into place. All right, I have it basted on. I actually flipped it over this way so I could see the curve. Now I'm just going to trim down this curve. And it actually says to baste this in place with 2 rows of stitching. So I've gone back and added a second row of stitching. All right, now we're going to take our gusset panel and our main panel and we're going to join them. So I have my centers marked here and I have the one here. I'm going to put it right sides together. So I've got my gusset panel lying the way it has in the drawing, in the pattern, and we're going to put the back of the panel right sides together with the gusset panel. Grab some clips and I'm going to clip it into place. I'm going to just put 2 in for now, or 3 in for now. Guess we need to make sure we have the center of the body marked as well. So I'm just going to fold it in half and snip it. And now we want to take the bottom of the gusset panel and we want to match it up with the middle of our main body panel. So it's going to need to curve around and I'm going to put a couple clips and do the same on the other side. And now we are going to continue to clip all these pieces in place. So you can go ahead and stitch this if you want. I'm going to continue around. Actually, no, we're going to do the whole thing and then I'm going to stitch it. So I'm going to continue to clip this side. I'm using as many clips as I need. All right, so now I'm going to go over to the machine and I'm going to stitch what I've clipped. All right, I have my stitch length set to 3.5 and I'm just going to stitch from the center around to the center on the other side. I might start on a flat spot to make it easy to start off with. I'm probably going to end up stitching it in sections just to make it easier. So I may start up from the anchor there and come around to the anchor, do the other section on the back, then do the bottoms. I don't know. In the instructions on the tips and tricks, she does say that you can do like 2-inch sections at a time and just baste those on and then go around. And so once everything is basted, together, then you can go around and sew with the full seam allowance. So I'm thinking I'm actually going to just start with that. I'm actually just going to baste these together. And then once I've got everything on, then I'll go around the whole thing with the full seam allowance. So I'm just going to pick a spot and start there. I'm on a 5-stitch length now. I've decided I'm going to do just the bastings. Use your stiletto if you need to smooth out the fabric under the needle. All right, I've got that part basted. I'm just going to, with the panel, the gusset end and the side panel, I'm just going to try and do right around the base, right around the center mark in place. So right from here. And now I need to clip this part in place and stitch it. And I think I'm going to stitch it from this side. See if I can get this to work. So I'm going to go off camera and finish working my way around. So it's just basically the same thing. I'm going to probably stitch this into place. I'm basting everything. When I come back, I will do the full sew it on with the full seam allowance. So I'm going to just do the rest of this basting off camera for the back, and then we'll be back. So I found it easier to just fold up the strap, tuck it all in. I've clipped it all the way around, and now I'm basting it. So I'm going to just continue with the basting for now, but I just found it easier if I just clipped front and back at the same time, not worrying about different sections. You can do the tough areas. The tough areas for me are like the bottom. You could do the top and then these bottoms and get those set in place and then do the rest of it. But for me, just clipping everything in place worked a little better. So I'm just going to continue with the basting now, and then we'll go back and sew it full seam allowance. I've also opened my zipper, which does help a bit. All right, I've done that. I'm now just going to skip over, move it over so that I have the full seam allowance for the pattern, and start another, because it just, you sew around the whole thing. It's like a big loop. So just back stitch again. I haven't cut my threads, but I'm going to back stitch anyways, and I want to make sure my hardware is out of the way. And I apologize if you can't see what I'm doing. It's hard to get the bag out of the way and keep it where I need to stitch. All right, I've got this all sewn on. I'm going to move over to the table and we're going to continue working with it. All right, now that we've got it all stitched on with the full seam allowance, I'm going to go around, make sure I haven't missed anything. I do have like one little pucker there, but I'm not too worried about it. That's going to be on the inside, and we still have to sew on our binding. So the instructions, now I'm just going to actually check. Yeah, I think it'll be okay. The puckers that are in there will work themselves out. So actually I'm going to turn it right side out and see how it looks before I trim down the seam allowance, because it can be difficult to work with if your seam allowance is too small. So if I need to fix anything. All right, that's looking pretty good. It needs a little bit, it needs to get worked out a bit, but yep. So I'm going to just go in and I'm going to trim back the seam allowance as per the instructions, because I'm going to be working with a 1-inch fold over elastic. I just realized I haven't pulled that yet, and I didn't have that in the what pieces we need. But yeah, I'm using fold over elastic. I have to go get it, but I need these trimmed back so that I can actually put the fold over elastic on. So I'm going to trim it back to the amount that it says in the instructions. So about that. And I will continue this all the way around. I'm going to do that off camera. Time to add the binding. I'm using fold over elastic as my binding. Now I've gone around, I've clipped it on to make sure that I had the right amount, and I seem to. It doesn't match perfectly, but it's good enough. So I like to use, first of all, fold over elastic, but I also like to glue it on. I find it stays in place better if I actually glue it than try and clip it, and I'll be clipping as well, but if I just try and rely on the clips, they don't tend to work very well. So what I did is I folded over the end, I added some glue so that I have a nice finishing point. Now there in this elastic, you can see there's a center line. I'm going to be trying to keep that center line along the center of the seam. Some places are thicker than others, so it might not always work, but this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to try and do it anyway. So I'm going to clip it into place here. I'm going to clip it around first, then I'm going to go through and add the glue. So I pull it a little bit taut, but not a lot. You pull it too tight and it will start curling up when you turn the bag right side out. So I'm just going to go around and clip everything and just keep doing that. Stretch it a little, line up that center line with the center of the seam, and clip. Now when I get down to the end, I'm going to, again, pull it a little bit taut, but I want to make sure that I overlap. So I'm going to cut it off about here. And I'm going to do the same with the glue on the end here. Fold it back. Then I'm going to grab some of these clips, move them out of the way, and I'm going to just stretch it around a little bit and overlap it. There. I haven't got it quite enough. All right, now that I've got that, I need to go around and I'm going to just be adding glue along the edge and putting the fold over elastic back down. So the end that I just finished, I'm just going to pull it up, grab my glue, and I'm going to put a bead of glue along this edge here. For now, that's where I'm going to start. I have to put the lid back on because it's bubbling out already. So I'm going to stretch this a bit and put it down in place. And clip it. I'm going to move a few more clips, pull it back, one more, and then add glue along the edge. And we need to pull it out again so that it's stretched like when we first put it down. So I'm going to just continue around It's the same general idea. When I get to the end, I will just overlap it. So I'll do a few more of these on camera, and then I'll finish it off camera. And you just, if you get it glued down, then it doesn't move as much when you're going to stitch it in place. All right, I'm going to keep going off camera, and when I come back, we will be finishing it off, finishing off this end, and then we will stitch it on. All right, I'm down near the end, so I'm just going to unclip this a bit. I've got some glue already in there, so I'm just going to put a little bit more down. Don't want to go too far because I don't want extra glue hanging around out that's not underneath the binding. So I'm just going to pull this a little and overlap it and try and match up the bottoms. It doesn't always, and it's fine. This is the bottom of the bag, so while it may be empty, if you sell them, it may be empty or give it away. It'll be empty when the person sees it, but as soon as they put stuff in, you're not going to see the bottom here. So I'm just going to let that sit up for a couple minutes. It should be, like, it's Fabri-Tac, so it should be close to being set up already. And then when we come back, I will move, we'll be around at the machine, and we will stitch this into place. I'm going to stitch around this. I've got it on a 4 stitch length, and because I cut the edges, the sides down a little much, I'm not going to take as much of a seam allowance because I really don't want to get any puckers in this. And it looked pretty good before, so I'm going to try and keep it to about 1/4 of an inch in from the edge. So I'm just going to pick a spot on the side here. I don't really want to pick at the bottom or select where I just finished gluing it. And I'm going to backstitch at the beginning and the end of the seam, and then we'll see how I do. And if I have to go over a few areas, I do. Not a big deal. So I've missed a spot down here, so I'm just gonna go, yeah, it caught and it came undone. When I came around the first time, it caught. It's not perfect. Most of it's on. Hopefully it didn't pucker. Anyways, I'm going to fix up this little edge, just try and get it under my needle and stitch it as best I can, and then we'll move over to the table and continue on. All right, time to turn it right side out. So I'm just going to start pushing it out like this. Hopefully I can get the glue off. It's the only part I don't like about working with glue is I end up getting it all over the place. So put my hand in, push out the bottom. It needs some manipulation, but otherwise it's not bad. Alright, I managed to get rid of most of the glue on the side by using this stuff called Goo Gone. It wasn't really sticky because it had hardened, but most of it is gone now. There's just a little bit that'll probably come off with use. So this is what we have. We have one more thing we need to do before we're done, and that is add the swivel hook and the slider. So I'm going to be working, with the strap. So now we need to add the strap, or the slider and the swivel hook to the strap. So this is the outside of the strap. So I want to work with the outside of the strap. Okay, so this is the top part of the strap. So I'm going to take my slider and I'm just going to put it on my webbing. So over the bar, over the center bar, and move it up a bit. Now, since this is the top of my strap, I want my swivel hook to be on the top as well. So I'm going to put it facing up. So standing up, and I'm just going to slide the webbing in like that. Move it down a bit. Okay, so this is what we've got. We've got the outside of the top part of the strap is here, coming around, and I'm going to loop it around. I'm going to push the webbing up through the slider. I'm going to come up, the way I've got it sitting, I'm coming up the right side. And then I'm going down the left side. I'm folding it over. I'm going to fold it over about an inch, approximately an inch. And then I'm going to move it back so that it's fairly close to the slide adjuster. So it's a little more than an inch away from the slide adjuster, and I'm just going to put clips in it. Now I'm going to take it over to the machine. You don't need to watch me do this. And I'm going to stitch right along this edge and this edge. But before I do that, I want to make sure that my strap is correct, that I've got the right ones clipped together. I want to make sure that it adjusts, which is pretty good. So I'm going to put the fabric back up the center. I'm going to go over and I'm going to stitch it, and then we will be done. And there we go. I've got it all stitched on. I've got 2 rows of stitching, as close as I could get with the slider, and then right at the end there. So there we go. I'm just going to, you can clip it on either side. It doesn't really matter. Just pick a side and clip it on. It can be switched. That's the whole point of having the D-rings, one on either side, is you can switch which side you want to carry it on. Again, it needs a little bit of, I need to work it out a little bit, but there we go. This is the Piero Sling pack by Creations. Another very cute bag. Tara has come up with a number of cute designs. This is as well, and the way it comes together is just fantastic. It actually came together very quickly. Usually I spend 2 days or more recording a tutorial. I was able to get this cut out and sewn and recorded all within the same day. It's been a long day, but I was able to get it all done within the day. So I love this bag. Again, I'm hoping, I'm probably going to end up selling it, but it's one I would probably carry myself. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you are notified when new content is released. And yeah, I think that's everything. Thank you for watching again, and we'll see you in the next tutorial.